Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Megillah. We are up to Perek Aleph, Mishnah Zayin. Today's Mishnah should be Le'elun Nishmat, Neria ben Svetlana, Aranbayev, and Eliyahu ben Burchai Israelov, Benuchatam began Eden, Amen. And Neavdi ben Chaim Nechaim, V'derefuah Shelema, Daniel Shalom ben Rosa, Betor Shah Chulei Israel. The first part of this Mishnah speaks of a Zav, a man who is Tameh because his organ emitted a certain type of discharge. If he experienced only one such discharge, he immerses himself in a mikveh and becomes tahor at nightfall. He becomes partially tahor as soon as the immersion takes place, but may not eat terumar kodashim, sacrificial food, until nightfall. If he had two discharges in the same day, or one on each of 2 consecutive days, he has a higher level of tumah. Now a zav who has only one discharge is a rishon tumah, first degree of tumah. Therefore, he can transmit tumah to food and drink, but not to other people or utensils. If he had a second discharge, he becomes an avatuma, primary source of tumah, which means that he can transmit tumah even to people and utensils. And if a zav who had 2 discharges puts his weight on something and doesn't support a person, like a cushion, a bed, or a chair, that object also becomes an avatuma, like the zav himself. It's not necessary for him to touch the object. For example, a zav who sits on a pile of cushions makes them all tameh, even if he touched only the top cushion. And this is discussed in Sefer Vayikra, chapter 15, verses 1 through 10. So again, if he had 2 discharges, he has a higher level of tumah, and needs to count 7 days in which he does not have any discharge. On the last of these 7 clean days, he immerses himself in spring water and becomes tahor at nightfall. And again, the same thing applies. He becomes partially tahor as soon as the immersion takes place, but he may not eat terumar kodashim until nightfall. A zav who had 3 discharges, which is 3 discharges on the same day or over 2 or 3 consecutive days, that is the same as one who had 2, except in a single respect. And ben zav roeh shte riyot leroeh shalosh. There is no difference between a zav who had 2 discharges and one who had 3. Now both must count 7 clean days. Both make objects on which they put their weight into avot tumah, even without touching them. Ela korban, except that one who had 3 discharges must bring an offering on the day after his 7 clean days, while one who had only 2 discharges does not have to bring an offering. A zav of 3 discharges must bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young doves. One is an olah offering and one is a chatat offering. He may not eat kodashim until the chatat is offered. As the Rambam writes in Chod Mechusarei Kapara, chapter 1, halacha 1 and halacha 5. Now the next 2 parts of the Mishnah discuss a mitzorah. This is a person who has contracted tzarat, a certain type of skin affliction that is described in Sefer Vayikra, chapter 13. A mitzorah is an avatuma, similar to a zav who had 2 or 3 emissions, and he is forbidden to be in any walled city in Eretz Israel. Someone who shows symptoms of this affliction must be examined by a kohen, who determines whether he has a mitzorah. If he has definite symptoms of tzarat, for example, his skin is colored with a whitish patch in which there are 2 hairs that have turned white, the kohen declares him to be a confirmed mitzorah muchlat. If his symptoms are not definite, for example, he has a whitish patch on his skin, but its hairs are still dark, he is declared a confined mitzorah musgar, meaning that he is confined to a room outside walled cities for 7 days. After the 7 days, the Kohen inspects him again. If the Kohen finds that his condition has worsened, he declares him to be a confirmed mitzorah. But if his condition improved after 7 days, he is declared free of tzarat. If it remained the same, he is confined for another week. After the 2nd week, he is inspected a 3rd time. And if his condition has still not changed, he is declared free of tzarat. Again, even while the person is merely confined, he shares the same laws as a confirmed mitzorah with the following exceptions. And ben mitzorah musgar and mitzorah muchlat. There's no difference between a confined mitzorah and a confirmed mitzorah. The 2 types of mitzorah are the same in regard to tumah and the prohibition of being in a walled city. Ela priya u frima, except with regard to letting his hair grow and tearing his clothes. A confirmed mitzorah must let his hair grow and tear his clothes, while a confined mitzorah does not need to do so. The Torah in Sefer Vayikra, chapter 13, verse 45, commands, and the person in whom there is the disease, his clothes shall be torn, the hair of his head shall be uncut, and he shall cloak himself up to his mustache, and he shall call out tameh tameh. So the verse states 4 obligations. A, wearing torn clothes. B, leaving hair uncut. C, wearing a garment that is pulled up to cover his mouth. And D, calling out tameh tameh. The first three laws apply to a confirmed mitzvah, but not to one who is merely confined. Although the Mishnah mentions only letting the hair grow and wearing torn clothes, the obligation to cover the mouth is also limited to a confirmed mitzvah and does not apply to a confined one. The Mishnah lists just the first two requirements in the verse, leaving the third one unsaid. And the fourth law, the obligation to call tameh tameh, is not limited to either type of mitzvah. Rather, it applies to any tameh person who can transmit his tumah to other people. He must call out tameh tameh. Now the Mishnah deals with the mitzvah was declared free of tzarat either after a period of confirmation or after a period of confinement. And ben taor mitoch esger letaor mitoch echlet. There's no difference between a mitzvah who was declared clean after a state of confinement. This refers to a confined mitzvah whose condition improved over 1 week or remained the same through 2 weeks and was declared clean by a Kohen, and one who was declared clean after a state of confirmation. Both one who was declared free of tzarat after confinement and one who was declared clean after confirmation must immerse themselves in their clothes in a mikvah ela tiglachat v'tzipurim, except for the requirements of shaving the hair and the ritual of the birds. When a mitzvah who had been confirmed is declared free of tzarat, he must shave the hair of his body and participate in a ritual that involves two birds. But when a mitzvah who had merely been confined is declared clean, he does not need to do so. The ritual involving the two birds is described in Sefer Vayikra chapter 14 verses 1 through 8, and the Rav points out that in fact the cleansing of a confirmed mitzvah takes 8 days and includes several other procedures as well as offerings. The Mishnah focuses only on the first day when he must shave himself and participate in the ritual of the two birds. And that is in Abotav Mishnah Zayin. Mishnah Chet continues, and ben sfarim litfilin umezuzot. There is no difference between the laws of books of scripture, the Torah, prophets, or writings, and the laws of tefillin and mezuzot. Now they are the same in that the sheets of parchment on which they are written must be sewn together with sinus. Also, both contaminate the hands of one who touches them, as the Gemara says in Shabbat, page 14a. And because we know it is improper to touch scrolls of scripture with one's bare hands, the sages decreed, therefore, that if one does so, his hands contract a low level of tumah. So there's no difference between them. Except that books of scripture may be written in any language. The Rav explains books of scripture may be translated into any language or written in any script. While tefillin and mezuzot may be written only in ashurit. Now ashurit is the square Hebrew script used to this day in writing Torah scrolls, tefillin and mezuzot. It also refers to the Hebrew language itself. The Mishnah means that tefillin and mezuzot are not valid unless they are written in the Hebrew language in the ashurit script. Now, although the previous Tana permitted books of scripture to be written in any language, the next Tana disagrees. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says, the sages did not permit even books of scripture to be written in any foreign language other than Greek. According to Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, Greek is the only language besides Hebrew that is permitted for writing books of scripture. The permission to use Greek is derived from the blessing given to two of Noach's sons, Yefet, the forebearer of the Greeks, and Shem, the forebearer of the Jews. It says, Yaft Elohim liyefet v'yishkon ba'oleh Shem. May God grant beauty to Yefet and may he dwell in the tents of Shem. The sages interpret the beauty granted to Yefet as indicating the Greek language, which is the most beautiful of all the languages spoken by the descendants of Yefet. And they interpret the tents of Shem as referring to the study halls of the Jews who were descended from Shem. So the pasuk teaches that the Greek language may be used in writing books of scripture, which will be read by the Jews in their study halls. Now the Rav says that Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel's opinion was accepted as halacha. However, even according to this view, Greek may no longer be used for holy text because with the passage of time, ancient Greek became corrupted. Nowadays, it is permitted to write translations of scripture in any language, as Shulchan Aruch writes in Orach Chaim, chapter 334, Halakha 12, because many people do not understand Hebrew. And that is the Rabotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen v'amen.